Good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of Off Script. I'm delighted to say I'm joined not just by my friend and colleague from Sky, Jamie Carragher, but also a former teammate of Jamie's and also a colleague of mine from Sky in the shape of Craig Bellamy. Good afternoon to you both. Craig, how are you during lockdown? Because I know as a person you are somebody who likes to be very active. You must be finding this tough.
It's the last 2-3 weeks have been very, very difficult. To start with, you feel it's going to be over very soon, but the realization it kicks in that it's not. It's going to take a while. We still don't know, but the simple fact is people staying safe. And I've with my family, I'm with my in-laws at the moment. My missus is pregnant, so it's a difficult position for all of us. But everyone else is in the same boat, so we just have to get on with it.
I don't know if you've seen the Andy Murray documentary, Craig. He talks about his struggles with injury, mental struggles during an injury. As somebody who had injuries himself, is that A, something that you can identify with, and B, given how now it is far more at the forefront of society's mind and people far more open about it, do you think if your career was starting again now, do you think modern day players are better prepared to deal with it mentally than perhaps you were? And just how bad did it get for you?
Well, it wasn't, I think a lot of our habits as footballers is what you're taught when you're young. And they sort of stay with you. Like I remember, I had brilliant coaches at Norwich when I first started off, who taught me a lot, and a lot of it lives with me now. But some of it actually wasn't beneficial, and it wasn't their fault. It was what they knew. Things like when you look at money, don't worry about money. Money will come, money will go. Concentrate on your football. You look at, I remember even Sir Bobby Robson telling me, about a scan. I was going to go to a scan. He was like, "No, you don't go to scans. Let the wife deal with all that. You concentrate on football." So it was a lot of habits that were, but you're missing out on a lot of life as well. Football's only here a short time, and that's why you probably see a lot of footballers, more from our generation, do struggle with it. But really, if you break it down, I remember when I went to see, I was at Liverpool with Geoff. I know Carragher knows him really well.
Steve Peters?
Yeah, but I'll get to the Geoff first. He's seen one or two problems with me, and he's seen them before, but he's seen them escalate. And I never really noticed it. I just seen it as just normal habits for myself. And he addressed, we had a good conversation, and really he recommended me then to Steve Peters, and when I seen him it was a bit of a wake up call for myself, because a lot of the habits, I was injured when I moved away from home from a very young age, so I was 15 when I moved away from home, and you imagine a lot of 15-year-old boys moving the other end of the country, away from everyone, away from family, and the loneliness. Being homesick was the hardest I've ever had to deal with. That was, there was nights you're crying yourself to sleep. You can't speak to really anyone. It was only football. Your friends were able to go away go back home on weekends. I was stuck in, you think of it on, a 15, 16-year-old kid stuck in his digs. We called it digs at the time. On a weekend, all on your own, waiting for people to come back. And the effect, I probably look back now, when you get older, you understand a lot more, and that's just natural. And so I have a look back, and a lot of how I was and the anger I had, even my parents now, even I look at my father, I was really close to my father. We haven't never really bridged that gap, because I sort of held him responsible for making me go there. There was times I come back home and I didn't want to go back. I weren't going back, but he made me go back. And he was right. It was the best thing for me. But I held a lot of resentment towards that. And I still haven't really recovered really from that. And I look at it now as even throughout my career, and even through the Steve Peters, is, is very few people know this. I've never spoke about it. I don't really feel it's anyone's business to talk about it. I'm quite private in what I do, and Carragher know that. I keep everything away from, very few people know. They only see certain bits of what I allow you to see. but my private life is very, very, very private to me. I always want to keep that separate. I enjoy that side of it, but look, for the last 3-4 years, I've been diagnosed with depression. Now, I'm a manic depression. I can't get away from that. I have ridiculously highs, massive lows, and my lows, you've seen my lows, Geoff, you know my lows. I'm medicated. I've been medicated for 3 years. And this is the first time I ever spoke about it. So I believe a lot of that was maybe, injuries didn't help, because the injuries were so difficult to try and overcome. The self-doubt you have within yourself, which is normal, because you want to come back a better player, but you get a lot of people telling you can't make it, you're never going to be the same. So the level of trying to prove yourself on a consistent basis that I am going to be better, I am going to prove everyone wrong. Sort of came back to even being a kid. I moved away. I'm going to make this work, because I've missed out on my childhood. I've missed out on all my friends. If I've moved away the other side of the country, this is going to work. I don't care who's going to get in my way. And I just sort of went that way with, this was my demeanor. I didn't care about anyone. I trained harder than anyone. That was my mindset. I'm not saying I did, but that was if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go all the way with it. And it left me, look, I'm never going to, I'm trying to think of the word for it now. It's like, I'm really proud of what I was able to achieve. My drive was huge, due to my ability. My ability wasn't the same. We played with the likes of Stevie and all that. It wasn't that level. Completely. And people say, "Oh, you could have won titles," and I wasn't good enough. I'm telling you now, I knew I wasn't good enough. For me to get to where I did was a huge achievement. I got the best out of everything I had. I wasn't if you look at my weight, you look at the size, and even people see all this arguing and getting involved with players and this. I knew what I was doing. I knew exactly what I was doing. It was, if I'm going to compete with Desai or the likes of Carragher or your Vincent Companies, these players at this higher level, because that's what they were. I remember Tony Adams was the best player I ever played against. I have to put them off their game. I have to get them wanting to kick me more than actually concentrating on their own job. And if I could get that, then I can get half a yard. Then I can get it. If you can lose discipline for 1 second, all I need is that 1 second, and I'll be able to make something happen. And that was really what I just fed off. It wasn't something I particularly enjoyed as much. Like, after games, I'd be drained, but I just seen as the best way of being able to get myself an edge.
You're talking about Steve Peters. I got to know Steve Peters myself well, but I was thinking about what you're saying there. You probably would have loved to have met Steve Peters, or maybe a sports psychologist or someone of that ilk, maybe earlier on in your career. Do you think needing to speak to a sports psychologist was to do with your actual upbringing even before football, or was it the football? Because I actually was very similar to you in thinking, why would you need a psychologist? And I actually got to a stage, and the strange thing for me was, I actually started seeing a sports psychologist for a couple of years, but it was when I was at me best, not when I was at me worst. Because when I was at me best, I was then aware I was in me peak, and we were doing well for Liverpool. But I then put so much pressure on myself, because I got to a stage where I thought, I can't make a mistake. I can't have a bad game because I'm playing that well, or I'm seen as, the main man at the back for Liverpool, trying to stop the goals at one end, and Stevie's probably scoring with the other. And I put that much pressure on myself. And I always remember it was a game away at Atletico Madrid in the Champions League. Sky, I'm sure, would have done it. And we were winning 1-0. I was playing quite well, a typical European game. And I made a mistake, and they scored to 1-1, and I couldn't sleep. But it wasn't the end of the world. We didn't go out to Champions League. It was a group stage, and I thought, I've got to speak to someone. I need to speak to someone, really, because people, it's difficult to speak to your dad or your agent or maybe someone else in the dressing room, because they don't actually know what you're going through and what's going through your head, and that's why they're employed to do that.
No, and what like a person like yourself as well, Karen. I felt myself was similar as well. You didn't want to make excuses either. You didn't want it to be, to blame, or it's something else, or there was a certain element of weakness in you because you couldn't show it. It was impossible. That was the, for us, especially of our generation, that wasn't allowed to show. That was a weakness that you can't play this game. You can't be at the top of this game. if you show that type of weakness. But I think seeing Steve was more how accepted it all was, and the athletes he's dealt with the same problems, who are better athletes than us. Who've gone on, if you're dealing with an Olympic athlete who has 4 years for that one moment, how does he build himself? How does he deal with the pressure for that one moment that he's been building up for 4 years? We're lucky. We get this week in, week out. So if we have a bad game on a Saturday, I've got next Saturday to be able to do something about it if I'm lucky enough to play. These athletes haven't quite got that. So the composure of trying to find a different mode, but also to be more lenient with yourself, and also be more, you're going to make mistakes. Stop. If you build this pressure up, how are you going to play well on a consistent basis? It isn't going to happen. And even when I did play well, I didn't enjoy it. It was like,
sorry for interrupting there, Craig. That was exactly what I was going to say. Sorry for jumping in, Geoff. But how much did you actually enjoy your career? Because sometimes I look back and think, I love playing football, don't get me wrong, but how much did I actually enjoy it, and should I have enjoyed it more? Because it always felt like when you won or played well, it was more like relief than enjoyment in some ways.
That's what it was, yeah. It was like, that's why I felt sometimes, especially with Newcastle, I had to go out for a drink then. It was because it was relief. I built all week to this. And you were just so grateful you won that you were able then to just, unwind. I don't know if we're going to go on to these questions later. If there was something I could look back on my career, would be to enjoy it more, to not put too much pressure on yourself to try and do this, it was normal. It was tools that I didn't know any different. We didn't know any different. And I see the habits of footballers. I was terrible with it. It was, we talk about OCD and all that type of stuff. If I won a game, the next week I'd do exactly the same as what I'd done last week. I'd leave the same time. I'd even know if the traffic lights were green that time. If they were green or if they were red, it was like, oh no, I'm going to lose. And that would be eating me away for the next 5 minutes. Oh no, it ain't going to matter. But even through training, it was, if I didn't prepare myself right, if I was late for training, or if I had a bad week in training, I knew it was going to affect me in the game. Or if I give the ball away in the first couple of minutes, it's because what's happened all week. I haven't done this properly. I haven't done that. And this is football paying me back for it. So that's why I probably drove myself, a little bit insane with the habits of training hard and making sure you do things right, because I thought that's the only way I was going to get the just results on a Saturday. And these were things I was just programmed into me from a young age.
Craig, how much did you have almost an internal battle with, bear in mind you weren't enjoying it, and obviously injuries come as well, and it's a huge mental fight. How much did you have somebody on this shoulder saying, drive, nothing will beat me? And was there somebody on this shoulder saying, I've had enough, I'm going to pack football in? Was there ever a point where you thought, I'm walking away from this and not have had the career that you had?
Well, we were in, do you remember when we were in Malaysia? Sky covered a tournament in Malaysia. It was us, Newcastle, Chelsea, and the Malaysian team. But I was struggling with tendonitis at the time in both knees. And I remember we played Birmingham. It was Chelsea in the final. I think we lost on penalties. But I remember then after that, went back to the hotel, did not sleep that night. Couldn't sleep, tossing and turning. And it was, I woke up for breakfast. I was having breakfast on my own about 6 o'clock in the morning. I was sat next to a guy from Hong Kong. We just had a conversation about football, and I just said, I want it to be over. I don't want to play anymore. I'm in too much pain. I can't play to the level I want to. The expecting, everyone, Newcastle have invested heavily in me as well to play well. I didn't feel I could justify it. I didn't feel I was in a position. Manchester United were interested in me as well. They were interested in me that summer, and I just knew I couldn't go there because I was in no position to be able to compete with the players they had. And I just felt tortured. Thought this wasn't what I expected my football career to be like. I'm in this much pain, where I didn't want to sprint, where I certainly didn't want to decelerate because it hurt too much. And then twisting and turning, and then I didn't want to train hard the day before because I knew it would take it out of me in the game. My knees would be sore again. Having to deal with that was the toughest time during my career. Injuries, it was sort of relief then when you had an operation, because it was like, now I can do something about it. Now I can, press the reset button and concentrate on my rehab. I haven't got the pressure of playing, so I can just concentrate and being free again, and hopefully getting rid of the pain and doing a rehab right and give myself time for my knees to recover.
Craig, do you remember, I think you're talking about a knee operation. Did you get yours done in America, Stedman?
Yeah, Richard Stedman, yeah.
I think we got it done the same summer, because was we in the same holiday place in Portugal or something?
No.
We both had the same injury.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, you're right. It was. We were in the Algarve. That's right. When I seen you, I think you just come out your leg brace, and I was in my leg brace.
But you know what I want to pick you up on that is that, just speaking, I always use this example now of when you stop playing, you almost become friends a little bit with people you didn't play. So, you speak to Gary or you speak to different people. I know I played with Craig, but at that time you were at Newcastle, I was Liverpool, and he used to annoy me when I played. Maybe I annoyed him. So even on the holiday, even though it's break time or whatever, it's pre-season or end of season, I'm still sort of in some ways going on my way to not really speak to you. I don't know if you can remember. I look back and now I'm thinking, what was I doing? But I was thinking, oh, there's that Bellamy there, plays for Newcastle. Oh, we were fighting with each other in the Champions League, and I'm thinking, I'll just stay out the way of him. I don't want to speak to him. But now you look at it and you think, when you finish playing, you speak to anyone, you share experience or stories like we're doing now. But sometimes difficult to explain when you're that entrenched in your own club and you want to win, and there's that little feeling with other people you played against. I used to always take it off the pitch. I couldn't help it. So sorry for ignoring it in the Algarve.
I wish you ignored me when we were playing for Liverpool, mate. So it would have been. But no, I know exactly where you're coming from. It was the same. I remember Kieran Dye is one of my best friends, but he played for Ipswich. Hated him. We wouldn't speak. We literally, just because we were sort of, I wanted to be better than him. He wanted to be better than me as well. He got the first big move. He got ahead of me. So that angered me even more. So it was like, we didn't, until we really become friends, we got to know each other. But no, we didn't like each other. I remember when I first went to Newcastle, we didn't really speak for the first couple of days. And I think that's just, I don't know. I think we take it quite personal as well, Cara. I think how we are, going back, when I look at, even going back when I was playing with kids and all that, in the streets, and you'll be the same as well. Your area is actually worse than mine. I've been to your area. It's much rougher than mine.
I'm taking that as a compliment.
Yeah. But we were even if you took a football out, you knew straight away you'd be getting involved in a fight with that football because someone else is going to try and take it off you. So even when we took the ball out, it was like, who's fighting? Well, someone's going to try and take this. You better so it'd be like, you'd have to make a pact with each other to say, well, if it's my ball, but if someone tries to take it, you better join in with us, so you weren't allowed to play with it unless you were willing to fight if someone took it away. So it was that was just, and then you'll be playing against other kids as well, older kids, younger kids, and me being small as well. And, it was quite easy to go by people, and I was quick. The amount of kicks and the amount of fights you would have off there, it just become normal. It just, for me, just become, what you've seen on a Saturday at 3:00 was way worse when I was a kid growing up. Way, way worse.
Great. Just listening to you talk about your experiences and what it was like, and obviously having worked with you as well, you told me some of these things that were happening to you during the time. How much do you feel you have really tackled it all now with the help you've had, with the medication? And how at ease are you now with yourself? What happened? Why it happened? Because as you allude to, so you were fighting and biting 24/7 with everybody to be the best. You let nothing in the way of your psyche. But to actually unravel that to yourself and make sense of that, in many ways, I don't think it's at all a surprise that you suffered depression, and by my calculations, just a few years after your career ended. Do you think it was a result that depression set in after you'd stopped after doing that and you stopped having to wear that mask, as it were, and you just went, oh, like that?
I'd probably become more aware of it then. I was probably more aware of it, but during my career, depression was worse. It was way worse when I was playing. You know, the emotions, like I'd come home and I wouldn't speak for like 2-3 days. You know, I had a young family as well. I had a wife and I didn't talk. I wouldn't talk. And I was literally going to a room on my own and shut off everything. Then I'll go to bed on my own, go to training and do the same routine. So, you know, that was the only way I knew of dealing with it. It was, I'll be able to get over it myself. I don't need to talk to anyone. No one would be able to understand anyway, but that was the only way I could do it. Because when I was a kid and I was dealing with, you know, being homesick, it was something I had to deal with myself. I didn't have anyone else to talk to. Certainly wouldn't go to the coaches. And like I said, it weren't their fault, but they weren't in place. It would have been definitely a sign of weakness. So I overcome that position or that situation by myself. So I seen it and I'll be okay. I'll deal with it myself. But when you sort of come away from football, you sort of reflect quite a lot on what happened during football and also where your life's going now, what you want to do, where do you want to be. And that's why, you know, I took the decision to coach with younger players because I don't want them to feel that's what was acceptable or this is acceptable. That is not, you know, there was so much enjoyment this game can give you, so much satisfaction, but also it can give you the right tools in life as well. I've always, you know, and that's all sports, whether it's boxing or it can give you great disciplines and great work ethic. And, you know, you're being around the right people who've been in those positions and have been in those situations, who've seen it before, can give you the best advice going. And that's why I sort of like dealing with young players, because what you say to them in those moments hopefully will stick to them through their careers, like it did with my coaches when I was young. You know, like I said, there were some good habits, there were some really bad habits I got taught. And like I said, I never blame them. It wasn't their fault, but I've been there. I've seen every situation you can imagine. So for a young player who's going through a certain problem, come and see me, come speak to me. I can see, I usually sense it in training. I can see it with a player in training. I've had like all sorts from family pressures to certain situations that have gone on in the family with other family members, distant family members. I had one kid at Anderlecht, really good player, really good boy, but felt his father was ridiculously negative to him. If he had a good game, his father would pick up all the bad habits or all the things he's seen bad. Now, the father thinks he's helping him, but actually this kid's coming in now. You could see it. He was just like the world and the weight on his shoulders. And then you have to be involved then and say, look, I'm not saying the father's completely in the wrong. He's trying to do what's best for you. But actually what he's saying is not correct. You've done very well here. I've got the evidence, I've got the games to prove how well you've done. I'm happy with you. I couldn't be more than happy with you. What I'm seeing on you on a daily basis, I just need you to be happy. I need you to smile, because that's when you'll play your best. When you've got all this going on in your head, and you're listening to negative advice, it isn't gonna help you in any favorable way. So you try and, there's like situations. We had a boy who came in late, and like I said, there's all sorts of situations we can go into that I see on a regular basis. But you have to understand the situations, because you have to go back to what you know. And also what you want for the player, and also you want him to be the best human being he can be. Now, if I feel he isn't, and he's actually kidding you on, he doesn't want to work hard, doesn't want to train hard, it's too tough for him, he's bringing down other people next to him, then I won't accept that. Then I'll move him away from the group as quick as possible, because I don't believe that's fair on the group either.
Craig, you're talking about maybe how you're managing your squad or young players. How do you actually think you were managed, and the reason I mention that is because when you came to Liverpool, you had a tag as a problem player, or at times there could be ructions in a squad. And I was only at the one club my whole career, and yourself was there. Another player who had that tag was Nicholas Anelka, who came for 6 months. It's similar also now when I work with Roy Keane, a little bit, who had a similar sort of tag in a different way. And people always ask you, oh, what's that Bellamy like? Or what's Anelka? What's Roy Keane like at Sky? And you said, every one of those players I've just mentioned are brilliant, fine, I got on great with them. I sometimes wonder what is the actual problem, and then actually how do people deal with this, other managers, other clubs that you've been at? Because I actually don't find any of you a problem, anything of an Elker a problem, or Roy Keane, and where this sort of tag, or is it different at different clubs, the way you handled?
It depends what type of person. It's like, say for instance now with Vinny. Now Vinny knows me really well, but he also knows if I don't like something, I'm going to speak my mind, and he likes that, but he doesn't want that done in front of a big group. So he's like, when you're going to go nuts, speak to me first, or if you don't like something, come and speak to me first. And what I find with Vinny, and like, there's certain managers who can go with it, like Mark Hughes. I never once had I wouldn't say I had an argument. I didn't even have a conversation with him. We just understood each other. We never even had, I get on really well with the coach, Eddie, because I'm like you, Carragher, like, we love football. I watch every game going. He was the same. I had the same when my reserve team manager, Steve Foley, when I was at Norwich. I knew he'd be watching games. He would then test me the next day. So he'd stimulate me, he'd keep me going on, did you see that turn? Or did you see this player do this, do that? He knew I was watching. And he knew then, do you know what, we're going to work on that today. And that, to me, I was bought into. I was like ready to go. That's what we're going to do. And with older people, like I say, like Vinny is, I'm 7 years older than him. But what I find, like, he sees the bigger picture in everything. Now, I call it is when he's about to, say he wants to get rid of a coach, he doesn't feel he's up to standards. Now, how do you think I would deal with it, Cara?
No, I'll be over in 2 seconds.
Yeah. No more. Why are we wasting any time? He's got to go. He's not good enough. This, and this. Now, there will be repercussions from the back of that, because you can't just act straight away. But for me, I would have to do that. That's my mentality. So, but Vinny will play chess. Vinny will wait. He will calculate moves. He will move them around. He will wait for the time to be right. It might be 2, 3 months, 5, 6 months, 7 months. It took him 9 months, but he'll get to where he wants to go. Now with me, I'm play checkers. Like, this game's done. Now I want to go to the next game. Now, being around him and actually watching him work, it sort of give me a little bit of a step back as well, where I've been able to then, there's a bigger picture to everything, where I've always been guilty of not seeing the bigger picture. I thought I have done now what I feel is right, and it might be right, but you could also, when you react very quick, you could also be very wrong as well. Then you have to apologize. Then you have to come back on yourself. Okay, I'll deal with that. It's not a problem. But what I have found with, you realize other managers, Sir Bobby Robson as well, he was just looking at the bigger picture. He was just playing me. He knew the type of person I was. When it was a problem, he'd blame someone else. He never blamed me, because he knew it would keep me on side. He knew then there was different ways of getting the best out of him. If you go head to head with him, you're going to be in a confrontation. And in that confrontation, you might end up losing the player. So why put yourself in that position? So I look back now on a lot of those moments, and I've had like at the moment, say Anderlecht's been incredible, because we have a different range of players from different backgrounds, from different nationalities. So say we'd have one player who's extremely, he can be extremely volatile. He's has a big opinion, and that's due to his background. But I won't go head to head with him. There's no point. He's too good a player. 2, I need him. And 3rd, I don't need to lose out. If I lose out, the group are going to lose out, because does he train hard? Yes, he does. You know, I watch him in training. He gives everything he has. In a game, I can rely on him no matter what. But there's certain moments he'll lose sight of actually the bigger picture. He'll just react on that moment. If it was a bad challenge or if someone didn't do something at the time, he'll react off it. But he's right. But also at the same time, he needs to see, well, listen, what happens if you do that? I agree with you. I'm not gonna have a go at you for that. But you need to help that player. If he isn't seeing what you're seeing, how are you going to get him to your level to get him to see what you want him to see? Because if he does, he's going to make you a better player. So by learning, like by being around that type of stuff, that was something unfortunately, I learned a little bit too late. But now I sort of understand a lot of what the managers I got on with, how they were able to handle me, also to give me the tools to be able to handle other players like myself.
I suspect, Craig, you might have, as you were speaking then, I think you might have answered what I was wondering. You've been on a footballing journey and a coaching journey as well, alongside your self-awareness and self-discovery. So if you were a manager or a coach now, how would you have handled you when you were 22, 23? I mean, the young man you were describing there just now, a lot to say for himself, committed trainer, not shy of opinions. Do you look at him and see yourself?
Yeah, in a lot of ways. But also, like, I'll always go back to, if he didn't work hard, then he wouldn't be with me. I wouldn't tolerate it. I wouldn't accept it. If he didn't, if he wasn't willing to work and show the right examples in training, then he ain't going to get the opportunity to play. So he's going to hit it in a negative way. But also then if you have someone who's willing and he's dedicated to being the best he can be, not the best there is or best who's, better than this, better than that, the best he can be, and he wants to improve, there are always ways you can work around the player then. There are always ways then, well, how can I get him to look at certain things or look at it a little bit differently to what he's seeing it? But the raw essentials of what you want in a player are there. They're there. I've just got to get him now where I'm not the enemy. Other people out there are not the enemy. We're all here to make you the best you can be. And then if you put that in place and you show the player, like I have to go with those players because I look at it myself. Do you have my back as a coach or as a manager? Do I have that trust in you where you look out for me? Yeah, you'll tell me when I'm wrong. I'll take that. I'll accept that all day long. Because if I'm out of order, I'm out of order, and then I need to be told. I won't learn that way, and I won't have respect for you if you didn't tell me that. But if you've got those raw essentials of that work ethic, I can work around everything else. I can get you to where I need you to be. And I can also hopefully get you to be the person that I hope you can be. Because I don't want, a lot of coaches were happy to work me on that way, but they didn't want to get involved in, why is he this way, or why does he think this way? Why, if he doesn't like training, or if it's not to the level he wants, or if certain exercises are not that I didn't enjoy, or I didn't think they were beneficial to what we were going to do on a Saturday, I would say something. Now I've got to put everything in place, and I've got to make sure the players understand that what we do in the week, this all put out, that they understand every training session is a purpose behind everything we do, because the opposition do this, so we need to be able to do that. Now, that's one exercise. Now we got to make sure if they take quick free kicks, every training session we're going to do this week is hand on ball goal, because the opposition do it. So those type of attention to detail, you become more, you look at more just for those fine margins, just in case there's a player like me there, because I'd see that. I'd see those moments. Like I used to I'd look at the training pitch before it would even put out, and I'd be watching. If you're a coach, I'd look at, is the line straight? Why are we doing this session? It would be in my head all the time. Well, what's the purpose of this session? There's no point wasting the time. We're all doing a session just to occupy people. No, why are we doing this? There's got to be a purpose to what we're doing. And if we're doing it, if you planned it properly, if you put the exercise in place, because if you haven't, then you're going to make it up off the cuff. I see that coming a mile away. So those type of the questions and dealing with players, I try and deal with if I was dealing with myself. So do you understand what I mean, Geoff, for that? Does that make any sense
100%.
whatsoever to you? Is like,
yeah,
when so I'll plan a session just in case there was an individual like myself willing to pick you up and everything. And do you know what? If I seen that player willing to do that, I would embrace it all day long. I'd be like, brilliant, he's ready, he's going to keep me on my toes.
Looking back at your first time round at Liverpool with Rafa Benitez, and I know it didn't go as well as you would have liked, or certainly didn't stay as long as you would have liked, but do you actually still look at it now and think, I should have adapted more to Benitez, or a manager's job is maybe to adapt more to the players actually bringing in?
I think when you bring in a player, you're bringing in a certain player for a certain reason. And now, if you feel you can cope and adapt, I think, well, as managers, you've got to be able to adapt to the individuals you have. We're all different. If you try and treat everyone the same, you ain't going to get the best out of everyone. So we're all different. We all have different motivations. You have to then, I go into profiling. So every player I coach, I profile. So we do analysis of, we have where they spend a day with a psychologist, and we go through the profiling. So what's his motivations? What information can he take? Some can take more, some can take less. So I know the type of players I can give that type of information because he's great. He can take it on. I think with Rafa, the biggest problem I had with Rafa was the first day. I remember sitting in his office. We were just about to sign, and he showed me a picture of me shouting at a player. And he's, what's this? And I was like, that's like a normal.
That's what you bought.
That's a normal Craig Bellamy picture in a newspaper. And he was like, I don't want to see this. I don't want this. This is not what I want. And I remember thinking, oh my God, this is going to be trouble. This is going to be difficult for me. But honestly, it was Liverpool Football Club. I would have, as much as, and I even spoke to you about this, kind of like, I knew he wasn't the man for me. I knew it. But it was because it was a Liverpool Football Club, I just had to sign. And it was difficult. It was a difficult period. Training sessions, like if it defensively for yourself were brilliant. It was, organisation was great. But for forwards, for creative players, he was trying to play the game. He was trying to direct you into this scenario or that scenario. But we don't know the scenarios. A creative player, you've got to allow to be creative. Making runs at certain times of making runs of what the position or what the situation is at that time. Like final third, I will get you into the final third as a coach. We will dominate the ball. I'll get you in those areas, but I will not coach you final third. I can help you with certain runs and but feel free to do whatever you want. Always like make a mistake, try something creative. I have no long as you win it back straight away. As soon as you lose it, going because that's the best chance we have. We've got an even better chance of scoring again. I try not to let creative players be creative. That's why they're in those positions, and that's why you went from a centre forward at Lilleshall to a centre back because your creative ability, Cara. You knew you got the best out of what you had. And I tell you what, I should say this. I always say this to be like Jamie comes across as like this no nonsense defender. And he was, if it needed clearance, if he needed a clear, he would clear and all that. But I tell you one thing, he was a miles better footballer than a lot of people think he was. He had real ability as well. And I remember when saying to you, I think it was stuck, why are you kicking it? Just play. You're a brilliant player. I see you do it all the time. But it was just, I think you got yourself into a position where you were no nonsense that you can't go.
I actually say the same about you. I was actually talking about you. No, deadly serious. I was talking about you the other day, and I always feel that players get pigeonholed. I've always felt that. I think I always say the same about managers. And the example I used to always use, you were one of them when you came to Liverpool, is people just think Bellamy quick, running down the channels. But your actually decision-making with the ball, I always felt was very underappreciated and was very good. I always felt, I'm not saying like you were like a number 10 playing people in, but you'd very rarely do anything stupid with the ball. I always think it was a good sign of someone's football brain, even though you renowned, as I say, for that pace. Whenever you were in possession, you never lost possession. I used to always use that with Roy Keane when he was playing. I was playing against him. People always say, "Oh, Roy Keane puts his foot in. He's a great," but he'd never give the ball away. His passing is really good, and I always feel that with players. Obviously, we all know what the main strength of every player was. So mine was being aggressive and organising people. But yeah, I was probably a better player than I was given credit for. You were, but I just think it's the nature of the game that we always have this sort of pigeonhole mentality of what a player. It's the same with managers. Ferguson was this ranter and raver, but it was Wenger or someone else who was the tactical guy who was Mr. Cool. Whereas to be at that level, you've got to have a touch of everything. And yes, your main strength is one thing, but there's no way you get to the level of not just saying us, but players in general, and certainly managers as well, without being able to tick a few more boxes than what you.
Well, you might get to the level, but you won't have 10, 11, 12, 13 years of it. It just you've got to be, especially in this day and age with the quality of the Premier League. But I used to I tell you, there was one scenario who always used to grate on me, and I'd have to pull people up non-stop on it. Was say, for instance, the Michael Carragher issue. He just keeps it simple. He doesn't play any, he just plays 5-yard balls. Do you know how good you have to be able to do that? Do you know, because you're looking before the ball comes in. He was an incredible player. You couldn't get near him on a pitch. And so those type of players, from a Gary Speed, he wasn't eye-catching. He wasn't going to be, a type of player who, fans would cheer. Or fans would be singing his name all the time, and after the game, really appreciate. I remember there was one player even Mark Pembridge. Everyone, ordinary player, but actually an exceptional footballer, just so intelligent. Could play one touch, and I'd always say, to be a top player, they're the ones who could play one touch. Now, I wasn't that level. I would say I was a good player. I could play two touch. Now, if you're taking 3-4 touches, you're an average player.
Last one from me, Craig. 9 different clubs in your career. Could there have been more? And were there any other moves that nearly happened or should have happened?
More? Do you know, the one was Spurs. It was, I remember around about 1999. It was near enough all agreed with Spurs from Norwich, and I'd done my cruciate. So that finished that one. Then before I went to Liverpool, the first time with Benitez, I spoke to Martin Yall. It was near enough all agreed, but like I said, Liverpool came in and that was it. There was only one place I was going to go then. Man City, Spurs came in again. So it was between Man City and Spurs, but obviously with Mark Hughes and Mark Bowen being there and Eddie, that was it. I went to Man City, even though Harry was ringing me at all hours. It was, but I went there then, and I remember the next time that summer, Man City come back in. Spurs come back in for me. Man City wouldn't allow it to happen. A year later, after when I came out of Cardiff, I was just about to go to Liverpool again, and the Kenny. And I remember getting off the plane. Liverpool sent me on the plane. It was final day. There's a picture of me on the phone with Harry. It was so Spurs about 6-7 times.
4 times you've turned them down.
It'd be about 4 or 5 times. Yeah, and I got to be honest, it was I think all of us I think Carragher said the same as football. I know there's obviously with yourself with Liverpool, but there's always something special about Spurs. When it was at White Hart Lane as well, it was always one club I always felt it'd be perfect for me. That was, I could see myself playing there, and it's only one regret I have now but it was just every time there was a different situation, or there was, my cruciate, then Man City, then Liverpool twice. So it just wasn't the right time for him.
Craig, you played at City, you've played at Liverpool. Two of the best teams in Europe at this moment. Who do you think you would have suited most in the way both teams sort of set up? Either, the Pep Guardiola team, the way they play, and you've said he was a big influence, sort of, the Cruyff way, if you like, but also watching Klopp now which manager and system do you think you'd suit most if you were if you were at your best now in the Premier League?
Probably, look, they're two of the best teams. I know there's talk, obviously, people, this, like, coronavirus obviously hit, but it seemed to be quite a good time for Manchester United, because now everyone's talking about Man United and saying, but they're nowhere near these two clubs, nowhere near. And it's going to take a good 3-4 years before they get anywhere, because the balance they have in the team, the way they play, the intensity they play at, the press, and the understanding of what they're both doing takes them well ahead of, these two teams are a big gap ahead of anyone else. But I think the way, say for instance, with Jurgen Klopp's side, with Salah and Mane, they like to roll inside. So they roll inside, they get their width. They still attack with 5 and they defend with 5 sometimes when Alden are joining that. But I think the structure of Man City of sometimes being wide, staying wide, dealing with 1v1s would probably suit me better. With players being in their position, understanding their roles, understanding, where the pockets are, where the 10s are. That would probably suit me better, because I don't believe I'm as probably as intelligent as the likes of Mane and Salah to be able to go from out to in. I liked creating that width, and I liked to create 1v1s out wide.
I really like Kara's question there, so I'm going to follow up on that. I said it was the last one, but obviously I've lied. In the front three of both of those two clubs, City and Liverpool, which player can you most identify with? Who would be the most similar to you? If you were to be parachuted in the front three of Liverpool or City, who do you think you would replace because you do a similar job?
I honestly, that is nowhere near fair, because I think that's a massive disservice to either of those teams front three. They're miles ahead of me. I'd probably, I don't know, I'd be, Sterling's incredible. Listen, miles better player than myself. But when he goes over to the left, then I'd probably say that would be a little bit more similar to the type of role that would suit myself. But you look at Salah, the way he plays, Mane, it was incredible player. And I tell you, one player, I know we're talking to Shreeves, and the one player I think Man City have missed so much this season is Sané. Sané, just for the balance of the team and what he creates and what he's able to do in his pace on the left side, but also don't underestimate his pressing. How much he presses from when he sets the trap, when that ball gets thrown out or it goes out to a fullback, how good he is at that as well. He's been a big miss for Man City this season. But I'd say probably out of all the players there, I couldn't do anywhere near what Aguero does, Mane, Salah. But
you can do what Sterling does.
No, what he does on the right, I definitely can't do.
That's the headline on Sky Sports. Craig Bellamy. I could do what Raheem Sterling does off screen.
The only similarity is when we get it down wide on the left, we can't cross with our left. We'd have to rely on pace for cutbacks and coming inside and having a shot. That's the only similarity I could have to him, and that's a massive disservice to Raheem.
I've got one more, sorry. Because you're talking about playing on the left, and I know how dangerous Craig was on the left side. Can you just talk the viewers, Craig, through that tackle I did in the first minute at Anfield when you're playing on the left, and I was right back.
How bad was that challenge?
Only that I knew you. That stopped me getting sent off. You actually got off. I'd been off after a minute.
I was playing well at that time. I was in really good form.
That's why I've done it.
No, but I was looking forward to you playing there. It was like, Carragher's playing right back. I know he doesn't like right back. I know this will be his nightmare. I know he'd be planning everything about this game. So yeah, and when you like that tackle early doors, it was like I knew exactly what you were doing. But yeah, look, I would get up, but because it was yourself. But if it was someone else,
How bad was it, Craig?
I was naughty, Geoff. I'm telling you honestly, it was high. It was high, and you could always tell he knew what he'd done because he didn't defend it. He just come up with a big insult to himself, like, you know. So
Yeah.
he knew what.
Yeah.
He knew what he was doing.
Scandalous stuff. Craig, it's been terrific to talk to you. Really, really enjoyed your company, as it was always with you as well, Jamie. Really enjoyed hearing you reminisce and open up as well. So thank you so much for joining us off script, and we'll see you soon. Thanks a lot, pal.
Take care.
Cheers, fellas. Thank you.
Cheers, mate.